The food flask hit the muddy ground before Seyi could bend down. Bode Williams had kicked it from his hand in front of 63 CedarVale workers. "Move this smelling keek away from my executive gate," Bode roared, pointing at Seyi Alo's faded reflective vest. "Men like you should remain beside the gutter. Even if you drive this tricycle until your bones become dust, you cannot afford one tire of my SUV." Laughter broke through the crowd. Halima folded her arms and smiled. "Poor people are becoming too bold." "Look at him standing as if he owns the company." Ronke stepped forward. "Sir, he only brought an injured worker closer to the gate." Bode snatched her staff card. "So you want to lose your job because of an ordinary tricycle driver?" Seyi slowly raised his eyes. His lunch was sinking into the dirty water, but his voice remained dangerously calm. "Do you treat everybody this way when the owner is not watching?" Bode laughed harder. "The owner of this company will never stand beside a man like you." That single sentence would soon destroy everything Bode had built. Do not miss what happened when the boardroom doors opened. Comment your city and local time below and subscribe now, because this humiliation was only the beginning. 11 days earlier, at exactly 6:42 on a Thursday morning, Seyi Adebayo stood before a glass wall on the 21st floor of Adebayo Industrial Partners in Lagos. The city below was already awake. Buses groaned through traffic. Motorcycles squeezed between cars. Hawkers lifted trays to their heads and began another day of chasing small profit beneath a hard sun. Inside the office, the air was cold enough to make a person forget what heat felt like. Seyi had never allowed himself to forget. On the table behind him lay 2 reports about the same company. The first was bound in dark green leather. It carried CedarVale Consumer Distribution Limited Alo's logo, 14 charts, 32 pages of polished language, and a conclusion that sounded like victory. Staff transportation satisfaction, 88%. Fleet availability, 96%. Unresolved labor complaints, 0. Fraud exposure, low. The second report was not really a report. It was a brown envelope that had arrived without a return address 3 days earlier. Inside it were 17 photocopied payroll sheets, 6 photographs of rusting buses, 4 unsigned statements, and 1 page written by hand. "Sir, they are taking transport money from us every month, but the buses do not come. When people complain, they remove their shifts or refuse to renew their contracts. 19 buses are on paper. We only see 8. Some have not moved for more than 1 year. Please do not send another announced inspection. They always paint the gate before important people come." Seyi read the last sentence again. "They always paint the gate." The words disturbed him more than the accusation of theft. A dishonest manager could forge figures. That was ordinary corruption. But a company that knew how to prepare a clean face whenever power was approaching had developed something worse. It had developed a culture of performance. The door opened behind him. Peter Daniels entered with a slim laptop under his arm and a cup of black coffee in his hand. At 46, Peter had the patient eyes of a man who did not trust any number until he had chased it back to the person who created it. "You are still looking at those pictures," Peter said. Seyi turned. "Bus number CV12. The official record says it traveled 11,407 kilometers last quarter." Peter placed the coffee down, yes. "The photograph shows grass growing through the front wheel." Photographs can be old. The handwritten note says the picture was taken on Monday. Handwritten notes can lie. Seyi looked at him. Peter nodded once. "That is why we verify." 3 months earlier, Adebayo Industrial Partners had purchased 68.4% of CedarVale. It was not Seyi Alo's biggest acquisition, It was not even the most profitable company in his portfolio, but it employed 1,423 people across Oyo, Osun, and Kwara states. It moved cooking oil, detergent, flour, canned tomatoes, sanitary products, and other things ordinary families bought every week. That made its failures personal. Has Bode been informed about the forensic review? Seyi asked. Not yet. The board approved a quiet preservation order yesterday evening. I can mirror the finance logs without alerting the branch administrators. And the whistleblowing platform? It is active, but hardly anybody uses it. Why? Peter leaned against the table. Or fear, lack of trust, maybe ignorance, maybe all three. Seyi picked up one of the payroll sheets. A line marked Staff Mobility Support showed a monthly deduction of 2,350 naira. Support, he said. They deduct money and call it support. Peter did not answer. Seyi turned back to the city. Announced inspections are useless, he said. By the time we arrive, the gate will be painted, the uniforms will be new, and every broken bus will disappear behind one warehouse. You want to send somebody undercover? No. Peter waited. I am going. The silence that followed was not dramatic. Peter did not drop his cup. He did not shout. He only stared at Seyi long enough to confirm that the man had not made a joke. Going as what? He asked at last. A tricycle driver. Peter rubbed his forehead. You own logistics companies. You do not need to become roadside theatre. I am not acting like a poor man. You plan to wear an old shirt and drive workers around a factory gate. I used to repair tricycles. 20 years ago. Engines did not become spiritual beings because I came rich. Peter exhaled through his nose. Seyi came away from the window. He was 39, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, and calm in a way that sometimes unsettled people more than anger. Newspapers had published his name when major deals were announced, but Seyi rarely attended public award ceremonies. He gave no house tours. He had no verified social media page. Most photographs of him online were 6 or 7 years old. CedarVale employees knew Adebayo Industrial Partners. Very few knew Seyi Alo's face. I will use my real first name, Seyi continued. My license will be real. The vehicle will be rented legally. I will join an operating cooperative. Security can stay outside visual range. And if something goes wrong, then they intervene. If the branch recognizes you, then the exercise ends. Peter looked at the 2 reports again. You understand that observation alone will not remove anybody, he said. If there is fraud, we need logs, invoices, bank trails, access records, proper statements. Not only the anger of a billionaire who heard bad words near a gate. That is why you are here. And if you find nothing, Seyi closed the green report, then I will be happy to discover somebody wasted paper trying to deceive me. But neither man believed that. At 10:13 that same morning, Seyi left the office through a private basement exit and traveled to Oluyole in an ordinary grey Toyota driven by a member of his security team. He did not go to CedarVale. He went to a tricycle mechanic's, aloe yard, behind a row of tire shops near Challenge. The place smelled of petrol, hot rubber, welding smoke, and pepper soup from a small wooden stall beside the road. Metal parts hung from nails. Old seats were stacked beneath a zinc roof. 3 yellow tricycles stood with their rear panels open, like patients waiting for surgery. A thick-set man in stained overalls was bent over one of them. Musa Okoro, Seyi called. The man raised his head. He was 52. His beard had begun to grey around the chin, and a deep burn scar crossed the back of his left hand. Who is asking? Seyi. Musa wiped both hands on a cloth and looked past him toward the road. You are the man Peter mentioned? Yes. Musa studied Seyi Alo's shoes, his wrist, and the quiet way the grey Toyota had stopped far from the yard. Then he laughed once. Oga, those hands are not driver, Alo's hands again. Seyi held them out. They remember. Hands can remember. Back pain also remembers. He pointed toward a faded yellow tricycle near the wall. That one is 7 years old. New rings, new brake shoes. Steering is slightly stubborn when turning left. If you can start it without disgracing yourself, we will continue discussion. Seyi stepped toward it. No cameras followed him. No assistant carried his bag. He rolled up his sleeves, checked the fuel line, tested the throttle cable, and crouched to examine the battery terminal. Musa watched without speaking. The tricycle refused on the first attempt. It coughed on the second. On the third, the engine came alive with a rough metallic growl. Musa Alo's eyebrows rose. You did not lie completely, he said. Completely? Your left hand is too soft, but we can manage. They spent the next 3 hours reviewing road safety, cooperative rules, loading limits, daily remittance, passenger conduct, and the routes workers used around the industrial estate. Musa did not know Seyi was CedarVale Alo's controlling owner. Peter had told him only that an investor was conducting a transport study. That was deliberate. The fewer people who knew, the cleaner the evidence would be. By 2:27 in the afternoon, Seyi had paid a documented rental fee, signed the cooperative register, submitted a copy of his license, and received a temporary reflective vest that had once been bright yellow. Now it was the color of tired mustard. Musa tossed him the key. Tomorrow morning, 5:30. Do not come late. Factory workers do not forgive a driver who makes them lose shift money. Seyi caught it. What does CedarVale charge drivers at the gate? Musa Alo's expression changed. Who told you they charge us? Nobody. Then keep your ears open. Musa turned away. But before Seyi could leave, he added, and keep 700 naira in cash. They call it security support. No receipt. Seyi looked down at the small key in his hand. The first figure in the anonymous letter had just become real. At 5:21 the next morning, the sky over Ibadan was still dark enough for streetlights to matter. Seyi parked the tricycle beside a provision shop near a junction where CedarVale workers gathered. A woman was already frying a kara beneath a weak bulb. Steam rose from a pot. 2 men argued over football. Somebody Elo's phone played gospel music from a cracked speaker. The workers came in small groups. Some carried lunch flasks. Some wore safety boots tied together and hung over one shoulder. Others had their CedarVale identity cards tucked inside transparent holders around their necks. Nobody looked happy to be awake. A slim woman in a faded warehouse uniform stopped beside Seyi Alo's tricycle and asked, Olu Yol main gate? Yes, ma. How much? 400. She squeezed her face. Yesterday was 350. Fuel did not greet me this morning. She hissed, but climbed in. Within 6 minutes, the back seat was full. The conversation started before Seyi had moved 20 meters. My sister, did they pay your night allowance? Which allowance? They removed transport again. They removed from me too. Yet bus did not come on Wednesday. Wednesday. Our own has not come since last week. A man sitting closest to Seyi leaned forward. Driver, follow Ring Road side. If you enter under bridge, hold up will finish us. Seyi nodded. No problem. The man continued complaining without waiting for a reply. They say company has 19 buses. 19. Have you seen 19 buses there before? Another passenger laughed bitterly. Maybe the remaining ones are invisible. Rich people are buying spiritual vehicles now. The others laughed. It was not joyful laughter. It was the kind people used when anger had stayed too long and could no longer stand upright. Seyi kept both hands on the handlebar. How many do you normally see? He asked. 7. 8. Another corrected. 8 if you count the blue one, that only moves when auditors are coming. Even that blue one has no good brake. God forbid. Let them not use us to test heaven. Seyi did not ask another question. He listened. At the industrial estate, the road narrowed between long fences, warehouses, and drainage channels filled with brown water. Trucks waited beside gates. Men pushed carts, loaded with cartons. The morning smelled of diesel and wet dust. When Seyi reached CedarVale, a security guard stepped into the road and raised one palm. "Stop there!" Seyi stopped. The workers climbed down and hurried toward the pedestrian entrance. The guard came closer. His name tag read, "Niyi. You are new?" "Yes." "Cooperative." Seyi showed the temporary sticker. Niyi looked at it, then glanced toward the security post. 700. For what? The guard's face tightened. "You want to ask question this early morning. I am asking because I need to record my expenses. Record it in your heart." "No receipt?" Niyi lowered his voice. "My brother, do not start trouble. Pay and go, it is not my money." Seyi saw shame beneath the irritation. That mattered. He paid. Niyi folded the notes and slipped them into a black pouch beside the post. There were other folded notes inside. As Seyi turned the tricycle away, he noticed 3 buses parked behind a low wall. One had no front windscreen. One rested on wooden blocks. Grass had pushed through the cracked concrete beneath the third. The anonymous photographs were current. At 6:16, Seyi returned to the junction for another load. That was when he first saw Ronke. She wore a burnt orange blouse beneath a pale aqua jacket and held a navy handbag close to her side. She was not dressed richly. Her low black shoes had been repaired near the heel. But everything about her was neat. She helped an older woman into the tricycle before entering. "Good morning, sir," she said to Seyi. "Good morning, ma. Main gate, please." A cleaner in grey uniform arrived after the last space had been taken. She looked at the passengers, then at the clock on her phone. "Driver, a beg. I will stand." "No standing," Seyi said. "It is not safe. I will lose half-day pay if I am late." The other passengers shifted without making room. Nobody wanted to be uncomfortable. Ronke looked at the woman. "How much do you have?" 200. Ronke turned to Seyi. "Can she take my seat? I will wait for the next one." The cleaner stared. "Ma, you too will be late. I am not entering shift floor today. Go." She paid the remaining 200 naira and stepped back. There was no speech, no prayer, no announcement that kindness had occurred. The cleaner entered. Seyi drove off. But he watched Ronke through the side mirror until the crowd hid her. When he returned 12 minutes later, she was still there. "You did not get another ride?" he asked. One passed. "The driver wanted 500, and you refused?" "I am managing my salary, sir. My salary is not managing me." Seyi smiled despite himself. She entered the front side and paid exactly 400. As they moved, Seyi said, "You called me sir." Ronke looked confused. "Should I call you madam?" He laughed. "No. I mean, most people call drivers with a whistle. That is bad training from home. You work at CedarVale." "Yes, which department?" "Payroll reconciliation. Contract staff." "For how long?" 2 years and 9 months. Still contract." Ronke looked ahead. "They make it 11 months. Then 1 month break. Then another 11. That way, they say, you are not permanent enough for certain benefits." Seyi knew the practice. It was not always unlawful. Sometimes businesses used fixed terms for genuine temporary work. But payroll reconciliation was not temporary work. "Why do you stay?" he asked. "Because hunger does not accept principles as payment." Her tone was dry, not self-pitying. After a moment, she added, "And because I am studying for my professional accounting exams, I need the experience." At the CedarVale gate, Niyi stopped the tricycle again. You have paid today, Seyi said. Niyi looked around. This one is different. What is different? You entered closer than the line. The passenger works here. 500. Ronke leaned toward the opening. Officer Niyi, under which policy are you collecting money from drivers? His shoulders stiffened. Madam Ronke, this matter does not concern you. It concerns staff transport. Please leave it. Give him a receipt. Niyi lowered his eyes, then a voice exploded from the security post. What is all this noise? Halima George walked toward them in a ruby-red dress and black heels that clicked sharply against the concrete. She was 37, elegant, controlled, and already irritated by the sight of a tricycle delaying her morning. Niji straightened. Nothing, Ma. Halima looked at Ronke. You are discussing security policy at the gate? I only asked for a receipt. Are you in security? No, Ma. Then face the work they pay you to do. Some of you contract staff become too comfortable after wearing identity card. Ronke Elo's jaw moved, but she swallowed her response. Halima turned to Seyi. And you. Drop passengers at the proper line. This is a corporate environment, not a motor park. Seyi held her gaze. Yes, Ma. She walked away. Niyi stepped closer and whispered, You see, pay before she comes back. Seyi gave him 500 naira. Ronke remained beside the tricycle. This is wrong, she said quietly. Niyi Alo's face hardened. Madam, I told you it is not my money. Whose money is it? The guard looked toward Halima Alo's retreating figure. Then he said nothing. That silence followed Ronke through the gate. At 12:38 that afternoon, she opened CedarVale Alo's payroll support schedule on her office computer and searched for transport deductions. She had seen the figures many times. They were so ordinary that nobody examined them closely. 2,350 naira per employee, month after month. But now she thought of the 700 naira Seyi had paid, the 500 at the line, the cleaner who had only 200 left. Ronke filtered the data. 912 employees had been charged the deduction in February. Total, 2,143,200 naira. She opened the transport expense ledger. CedarVale had also paid fuel, maintenance, driver allowances, insurance, and route management fees for 19 buses. Her fingers stopped on the keyboard. The company was collecting money from workers for a service it was already budgeting in full. That did not automatically mean theft. It could be poor policy, duplicate billing, an approved cost-sharing arrangement, an accounting classification problem. Ronke knew better than to fall in love with her first suspicion. She created a reconciliation sheet, fleet register, fuel card usage, driver attendance, maintenance invoices, staff deductions. She worked through lunch. By 3:11, the first impossible line appeared. Bus CV12 had purchased 183 liters of diesel on February 16. February 16 was a Sunday. CedarVale's Ibadan distribution center had been closed. Ronke checked the maintenance record. The same bus was listed as undergoing engine replacement from February 7 to February 28. A vehicle without an engine had bought diesel. She leaned back slowly. Hope no problem? Tola Johnson asked from the next desk. Tola was 31 and worked in payroll support for warehouse staff. She wore a blue hair scarf and had the tired expression of somebody who had spent the morning answering complaints she could not solve. Ronke turned the screen slightly away. I am checking something. Do not check too deeply in this company. What does that mean? Tola looked toward the glass office where their supervisor sat. It means some numbers have owners. Ronke stared at her. Tola immediately shook her head. I did not tell you anything. Then she returned to work. Ronke looked again at bus CV12, 183 liters. No engine. That evening, when she boarded Seyi Alo's tricycle, she did not greet him with her usual lightness, he noticed. Long day? Ronke placed her handbag on her lap. Mr. Seyi, how many CedarVale buses have you seen moving? He kept his eyes on the road. 8. She inhaled. The books say 19. Seyi Alo's hands tightened around the handlebar. He did not turn, but something in his face became still. The tricycle rattled over a pothole, and the passengers at the back complained in one voice. "Driver, easy!" Seyi lifted one hand in apology. Ronke studied him. "You did not look surprised," she said. "I heard people talking this morning. Talking is different from company records." "Yes." She lowered her voice. "Maybe there is an explanation. There should be. Should be is not the same as there is. No." The other passengers climbed down at the junction, one after another. Soon Ronke was the only person left. She then stepped out, but before she closed the side rail, Seyi asked, "What will you do?" Ronke looked back at him. "The proper thing. Reconcile. Ask questions. Document the answers. And if the answers are lies, then I will document the lies too." She walked away. Seyi watched her until she entered a narrow street lined with low houses and kiosks. His phone vibrated inside the pocket of his navy polo shirt. He waited until he had parked beneath a tree before answering. Peter Alo's voice came through quietly. "You have something?" 19 buses on paper. 8 visible, a bus under engine replacement purchased 183 liters of diesel on a Sunday. Source? An employee noticed the discrepancy. "I did not ask her to send anything." "Good. Do not turn her into an informal investigator for you. She is already investigating because it is her job. Then let her follow procedure. If she uses the whistleblowing portal, I can protect the data trail. If she only confronts management, they may bury it." Seyi looked toward the road where Ronke had disappeared. "She does not know who I am. Keep it that way." The next morning, Bode Williams arrived at CedarVale at 8:04 in a black SUV with tinted windows. The security gate opened before the vehicle had fully slowed down. Bode sat in the rear seat with one hand against his cheek, speaking into a phone. His emerald green suit looked too expensive for the heat. A ruby red tie rested against his shirt like a warning sign. He was 44, broad in the middle, smooth-faced, and polished from cufflinks to shoes. When he stepped out, 3 employees moved toward him at once. One collected his leather folder, one carried his coffee, one opened the glass door. Bode did not greet any of them. Seyi was parked across the road with 2 passengers waiting. He watched Bode enter the building without once looking at the workers queued beneath the sun. A man beside Seyi spat into the drainage channel. That one has never used his own hand to open door since promotion. "Who is he?" Seyi asked. "Regional Operations Director. Ogre Bode. If he says rain should fall upward, everybody will carry bucket to the roof." The man laughed at his own joke, then stopped. "He is dangerous?" Seyi asked. The passenger glanced at him. "Driver, carry us. Do not put your ear inside matter that is not feeding you." They left. Inside CedarVale, Ronke had already spent 2 hours comparing vehicle numbers. The fleet register listed 19 buses. The security gate log showed only 8 entering or leaving the compound during the previous 45 days. 3 were marked off-site. 2 were assigned to Kwara State. 6 had no movement record at all. She sent a formal email to the transport unit at 9:17. Subject: request for supporting records on fleet utilization and fuel consumption. She attached a spreadsheet with 7 discrepancies and asked for explanation within 2 working days. At 10:02, her supervisor walked to her desk. "Madam, Halima wants to see you." Ronke saved her work and stood. Halima Alo's office was cool, clean, and decorated with framed statements about integrity. One read, "People are our greatest asset." Ronke almost laughed when she saw it. Halima pointed at the chair opposite her. "Sit." Ronke sat. Halima held a printed copy of the email. "What is this?" "A reconciliation request, Ma." "Who asked you to perform a fleet audit?" "Nobody. I am reconciling payroll deductions against transport expenses." "Your work is to reconcile payroll entries, not question operations. The entries cannot reconcile without supporting records." Halima leaned back. "Ronke, you are a contract employee." "I know, Ma." "You are writing as if you are external auditor." "I wrote according to the procedure. Procedure also requires respect for reporting lines." "I copied my supervisor." Halima placed the email on the table. "Nor withdraw it." Ronke Alo's stomach tightened. "On what basis?" Halima Alo's eyes became colder. "Do not use big accounting grammar to ask me simple question. Withdraw the email and replace the discrepancies with a note that transport data is pending review." "That would be inaccurate." "Are you calling me a liar?" "No, Ma. I am saying I cannot close the reconciliation without the records." For several seconds, the office was completely silent. The air conditioner hummed. Somewhere outside, a forklift reversed with a sharp electronic beep. Halima folded her hands. "Some people receive small opportunity and begin to carry themselves on their head," she said. 2 years in payroll, and you think you are the conscience of CedarVale. My sister, know your level before your level reminds you. Ronke felt heat rise into her face. "I only want the figures to agree." "Figures agree with the person authorized to explain them." "That is not how reconciliation works." The words left her before fear could stop them. Halima Alo's mouth opened slightly, then she smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Go back to your desk." Ronke stood. "And Ronke?" "Yes, Ma." "Your current contract ends in 6 weeks." Ronke held her gaze. "I know. Good. Then you understand time." When Ronke returned to her desk, Tola did not ask what happened. She only slid a small sachet of water across the table. Ronke drank half of it at once. At 11:38, a reply arrived from the transport unit. "Fleet utilization records are undergoing data migration. Kindly close current reconciliation using approved monthly summary." There was no attachment, no explanation. Only an instruction to trust the summary. Ronke saved the email in the case folder. At 1:06, she opened CedarVale Alo's third-party whistleblowing portal. The page warned that reports should be made in good faith and supported with available evidence. It also stated that retaliation was prohibited. Ronke stared at those words for a long time. Prohibited. A fine word. Whether it was true was another matter. She attached her reconciliation sheet. The maintenance contradiction, the fleet register, and the response from transport. She did not claim anybody had stolen money. She wrote only what she could prove. Possible duplicate transport, charging, and unsupported fleet expenses. Request preservation of relevant system logs and independent review. I am concerned about retaliation after being instructed to withdraw a formal reconciliation request. At 1:29, she clicked submit. A case number appeared, CV2503-11 unseen. Ronke wrote it inside a notebook she carried in her handbag. Then she took a photograph of the screen with her phone. 3 minutes later, on a secure dashboard in Lagos, Peter Daniels received an alert. He opened the submission. He read it twice. Then he called Seyi. "She used the channel," he said. Seyi was parked beneath a mango tree, eating rice from the same metal flask Bode would later kick into mud. "Can you protect her?" "I can protect the evidence. Protecting her job requires the company to follow its own policy." "Which company?" "The one you own." The correction landed exactly where Peter intended. Seyi closed the flask. "What do you need?" "Time. and restraint. Do not reveal yourself because somebody insults you. I have not been insulted yet. Peter gave a dry laugh. Give Bode Williams time. He did not need much. At 4:43 that afternoon, Bode left the main building while speaking to Halima. His driver reversed the black SUV from its parking bay at speed. Seyi Alo's tricycle was stationary behind the marked line. Waiting for two passengers, the SUV Alo's rear bumper struck the front mudguard with a cracking sound. The left lamp shattered. Everybody froze. Bode turned. His eyes moved from the broken lamp to Seyi, then to the employees nearby. What did you do? He demanded. Seyi switched off the engine. Your vehicle reversed into mine, sir. Bode Alo's driver stepped out, pale and silent. You were too close, Bode said. I was behind the line. Are you arguing with me? I am asking that we record what happened. Bode walked closer. The employees moved aside. He examined the SUV. A thin yellow mark had appeared near the bumper. Look at this, he said. You have damaged my vehicle. Seyi looked at the cracked lamp hanging from his tricycle. Your bumper has paint. My lamp is broken. Have you ever priced this kind of SUV in your life? No, sir. Then keep quiet before your poverty adds foolishness to itself. Seyi Alo's face did not change. Can we check the camera? Bode laughed and turned toward the workers. You see what hunger is doing to people? He wants camera because he cannot pay. Ordinary K driver is forming lawyer. Halima smiled beside him. Some people see a corporate gate and think it is a charity center, she said. Maybe he planned this so the company will repair his scrap metal. Seyi looked at the driver of the SUV. You were reversing. Tell him. The driver Alo's lips parted. Bode turned sharply. Did he enter your way? The man looked down. He was near the line, sir. Near the line. Bode repeated. You heard him. That is not what happened, Seyi said. Bode stepped close enough for Seyi to smell mint on his breath. Listen to me. People like you survive by disturbing people who have worked hard. Today it is damaged lamp. Tomorrow you will fall under somebody Alo's tire and start shouting compensation. Take this dirty thing away from my office. Seyi approached slowly. Sir, should we make incident report? Bode looked at him as if a chair had spoken. Are you the operations director? No, sir. Then why are you talking? Seyi lowered his head, but his hand moved inside the security post. Without drawing attention, he wrote the time on a loose gate sheet. 4:43 p.m. Black SUV reversing, tricycle stationary. Bode pointed at Seyi. You will pay for the paint correction. How much? 75,000 naira. A murmur moved through the workers. Seyi glanced at the small yellow mark. Please provide an estimate and the camera footage. Bode Alo's face darkened. You think because you can speak English, you are my mate? No, sir. English has nothing to do with evidence. The silence came quickly. Bode stared at him. For 1 second, something uncertain entered his eyes. Then pride pushed it away. Halima, ban him from entering within 100 meters of this gate until he pays. Halima nodded. Security will issue notice. Ronke had just come out of the building. She saw the broken lamp. She saw Seyi Alo's still face. She saw Bode Alo's SUV already moving away. What happened? She asked. Seyi looked at Bode. Nobody answered. Seyi started the damaged tricycle. The rich man reversed, he said. So the poor man must apologize. Ronke Alo's eyes hardened. Was there camera? Yes. Then request the footage in writing. Halima heard her. She stopped walking. Ronke, she called. Ronke turned. Come to my office first thing tomorrow. The tone was soft. That made it worse. That night, Seyi met Musa at the mechanic's Elo yard. Musa removed the broken lamp and examined the mudguard. Who hit you? An SUV? Police report? No. Camera? Yes. Then why are you looking like man who has swallowed stone? Because everybody saw what happened. But fear changed the story before the vehicle even left. Musa sat on an overturned bucket. That is how CedarVale works now. Seyi looked at him. You worked there 8 years, maintenance supervisor. Why did you leave? They did not renew my contract after I refused to sign service records for buses I did not inspect. The yard suddenly seemed quieter. Seyi pulled a small notebook from his pocket. What buses? Musa stared at the notebook. You are asking plenty questions for transport study. Seyi closed it. You are right. So let me ask properly. Did CedarVale ever operate 19 buses from Ibadan? Musa laughed without humor. Never. How many? 12 at the highest point. Then they sold 3 as scrap. 2 went to Osogbo. 1 burned near Iwo Road and insurance wrote it off. The remaining ones were suffering. Do you have records? Musa rubbed the scar on his hand. I kept copies of every inspection I signed. A man should not allow another person to use his signature and send him to prison. Can I see them? First tell me who you are. Seyi met his eyes. A person trying to know whether CedarVale is stealing from its workers. That is not a name. My name is Seyi. I know your first name. Seyi said nothing. Musa stood. I will show you records tomorrow. Not because I trust you, because I trust paper more than mouth. He pointed at the broken lamp. And you will repair this one yourself. Let me see whether Billionaire grammar has not removed all the mechanic from your body. Seyi looked sharply at him. Musa smiled. Oga, I did not say you are billionaire. I said your grammar is billionaire grammar. For the first time that day, Seyi laughed. But when he bent over the tricycle, his laughter did not last. At 7:55 the following morning, Ronke stood before Halima Allo's desk again. This time, Bode was there. He sat in the visitor Allo's chair as if the office belonged to him, one ankle resting over his knee. A folder lay open across his lap. Ronke recognized the first page, her whistleblowing submission. Her heart kicked once against her ribs. The portal had promised confidentiality. Bode tapped the paper. What is this nonsense? Ronke remained standing. It is a good faith report. Good faith? He laughed. You accused this company of stealing. I reported unsupported expenses and duplicate charging. I did not accuse any person. You mentioned transport records, because that is what I reconciled. Halima closed the office door. The click of the lock was small. Ronke heard it clearly. Bode leaned forward. Who are you working with? No one. The kick driver? Ronke blinked. What? You have been discussing internal company matters with a roadside driver. I asked him how many buses he sees operating. That is observable information. Observable information, Bode repeated in a mocking voice. Listen to this contract accountant speaking like Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Halima walked behind her desk. Ronke, we are giving you an opportunity to correct a serious error in judgment, she said. Withdraw the report. State that the discrepancies resulted from incomplete migration data. We will treat the matter as closed. I cannot say that without evidence. Bode slapped the folder shut. You cannot? No, sir. He rose slowly. Ronke had seen Bode angry from a distance. Up close, his anger did not look hot. It looked calculated. His voice became quieter. His movements became smaller. That frightened her more. No, you are here because this company allows you to be here, he said. Your salary is one line in a budget I approve. Your identity card works because somebody like me permits the gate to open. Do not confuse access with importance. Ronke Allo's palms became damp. Still, she answered, if the figures are correct, an independent review will clear them. And if I say there will be no review? The report is already submitted. Bode turned to Halima. Remove her from reconciliation. Halima opened her laptop. Effective immediately? Immediately. Suspend her system access pending performance review. Ronke Allo's breath caught. On what allegation? Insubordination. Breach of reporting protocol. Possible disclosure of confidential information. I have not disclosed confidential records. Prove it. The cruelty of those two words struck her. He was asking her to prove a negative while refusing to prove the figures. Halima began typing. Ronke looked from one face to the other. May I have the decision in writing? Bode Allo's eyes narrowed. Yes, Halima said quickly. You will receive it. And I want the reason my confidential submission is in this room. The typing stopped. Bode smiled. Get out. Ronke did not move. Sir, the whistleblowing policy. I said, get out. The shout hit the walls. Ronke flinched, but she did not run. She turned, unlocked the door, and walked through the open plan office with every eye following her. At her desk, the computer screen was black. Her access had already been cut. Tola leaned close. What did they do? Removed me from reconciliation. Because of the bus figures, Ronke nodded. Tola closed her eyes. Jesus, I need you to write down the time my access stopped. Why? Please. Tola checked the wall clock. 8:23. Ronke wrote it inside her notebook beneath the case number. 8:23 a.m. System access unavailable after meeting with Halima George and Bode Williams. She sent herself no files. She took no screenshots of data. She did not plug in a flash drive. Instead, she opened her personal email on her phone and wrote a factual note recording what had happened. She included no confidential financial details. At 8:41, Halima Allo's assistant delivered a letter. Administrative reassignment pending performance review. It instructed Ronke to report to document archiving in the basement until further notice. Tola read the first line and whispered, They have buried you alive. Ronke folded the letter carefully. Not yet. At the mechanics' Allo yard, Seyi and Musa were looking at 13 years of CedarVale maintenance history stored in 3 plastic boxes. Musa had labeled every file by vehicle number. The company bought 12 buses between 2014 and 2019, he said. See the chassis numbers here. These 3 were sold in April 2023. I signed the release because I supervised removal of usable parts. Seyi compared the numbers with the photographs from the anonymous envelope. CV14 is not on your list because it did not exist. CV17 did not exist. CV19. Musa laughed. Maybe it exists in the same place where government promises go after election. He pulled out another file. This blue one, CV8. Everybody likes to display it during inspection, but its brake master cylinder was failing. I wrote it 3 times. They changed the report to minor service required Allo. Who changed it? Transport manager then. He said instruction came from above. Bode? I did not hear Bode Allo's mouth. I will not put his name where I have no proof. Seyi nodded. Musa noticed. You like that answer? It is the correct answer. Correct answer does not always feed a person. No, but wrong answer can destroy one. Musa sat back. You are not ordinary investor. Seyi placed the documents down. No. Government? No. Police? No. Journalist? No. Musa scratched his beard. Then what? Seyi looked toward the road. His security vehicle remained 2 streets away, exactly as instructed. I represent the people who bought CedarVale. Musa became very still. How high? High enough to request an independent investigation. That is not what I asked. It is what I can tell you today. Musa studied him for a long moment. Then he pushed the boxes closer. Take copies. Originals remain with me. That is wise. I know. At 9:14, Peter Allo's forensic team created read-only images of CedarVale Allo's finance and identity management logs. They did it remotely through access authorized by the board Allo's audit committee. Nothing was changed. Nothing was deleted. Every step was recorded. At 10:36, Peter saw that Ronke Allo's user account had been disabled at 8:22. At 11:07, an administrator account assigned to Human Resources initiated a password reset process for Ronke Allo's profile. At 11:09, the system recorded a successful login from workstation HRIB04. Peter stopped scrolling. "Preserve this session," he told the analyst beside him. "What is the concern?" "An account disabled this morning has just returned through an HR machine. Could be authorized troubleshooting. Could be." At 11:18, Ronke Allo's account approved the first transport refund, 48,000 naira, then another, 126,000, then another. The transactions came in clusters, routed through 7 beneficiary accounts, labeled as staff reimbursement channels. By 12:03, the total had reached 6,870,400 naira. Peter Al's analyst whispered, "Sir, I can see it. Should we block the payments?" Peter looked at the authorization letter from the board. They had permission to preserve and observe. Emergency intervention required confirmation from the company, Allo's banking mandate holders. He called the audit committee chair. "Our potential active fraud," he said. "I need a payment hold now." Within 19 minutes, CedarVale Allo's bank froze the unresolved transfers, but 4,211,000 naira had already cleared into 5 accounts. Peter called Seyi. They used her account. Seyi stood so quickly that the plastic chair behind him fell. What? Her access was disabled at 8:22. An HR administrator reset it at 11:07. Transactions started 11:18. 6.87 million attempted. 4.21 million cleared before the hold. "Where is Ronke?" "I do not know. I am going to CedarVale." "No, they are framing her. And if you enter there as owner now, they will stop. Then they will claim it was an administrative mistake. We need the beneficiary links, the device history, the approvals, the people who touched the machine. They can arrest her. They can report her. They cannot lawfully convict her in one afternoon." "Peter, I know. But listen to me. We already have the account disable time, the password reset, the workstation, the bank hold. If you expose yourself now, Bode will begin destroying the human part of the evidence. Let him believe his plan is working." Seyi walked away from Musa and lowered his voice. "You are asking me to watch an innocent woman carry an accusation created inside my company. I am asking you to make sure the accusation dies permanently. Not only because you shouted louder." Seyi closed his eyes. The distinction was cruel. It was also correct. "Find her," he said, "and make sure the portal record cannot be altered. It is already preserved." At 12:27, 2 security officers entered the basement archive room. Ronke was sorting old payroll files when they appeared. "Madam Ronke, you need to come upstairs." "Why?" "Management meeting." Tola stood in the doorway behind them. Ronke picked up her handbag and followed. The meeting room on the 2nd floor was full. Bode sat at the head of the table. Halima sat beside him. The finance controller, legal officer, security supervisor, and Ronke Allo's direct manager were present. A screen displayed a list of transactions. At the top was her name. Ronke stopped walking. Bode pointed to the empty chair. "Sit down." She remained standing. "What is this?" "Your theft." The room seemed to tilt. Ronke looked at the transaction times. 11:18, 11:24, 11:31. Her access had been removed before 9. "My account was disabled at 8:23. Halima spoke gently. "That is what makes this matter disturbing. It appears you found a way around the restriction." Ronke stared at her. "You know that is not possible without administrator access." You have been in payroll for nearly 3 years, Bode said. You know the systems. I do not have identity administration rights. Yet your credentials approved 6,870,400 naira. I did not approve anything. 5 beneficiary accounts received money. I do not own those accounts. Bode opened another document. And now we discover that you have been discussing transport operations with an outside tricycle driver. Perhaps he helped you move the money. Ronke Alo's mouth fell open. That is madness. Bode struck the table with his palm. Choose your words. No, sir. You are accusing a man because he drives a cake. You have no evidence linking him to any account. Why are you defending him? Halima asked. Because the accusation is foolish. The legal officer shifted uncomfortably. Bode pushed a prepared statement across the table. It, said Ronke, admitted violating access controls and agreed to resign while refunding an initial amount pending full reconciliation. In exchange, CedarVale would consider resolving the matter internally. Sign, Bode said. Ronke read the first paragraph twice. Her hands began to shake. If she signed, there might be no police report that day. No immediate public scandal. No officers coming to her home. No neighbors watching her enter a vehicle. But the paper would follow her for the rest of her life. She looked at Halima. Did you write this before calling me? Halima did not answer. Sign, Bode repeated. I did not steal. Everybody says that. My account was disabled. You found a method. Show me the login device. That is part of our investigation. Show me where the password reset code was sent. Bode Alo's expression changed slightly. Ronke saw it. Her fear remained, but something stronger stood beside it. If my phone did not receive a reset code, then somebody used an administrator override. No, she said. Preserve the identity logs. Preserve CCTV for human resources. Preserve the machine image. Preserve bank beneficiary details. Put my request in the minutes. The finance controller looked at Bode. Bode Alo's face darkened. You think you are giving us instructions? I am stating what must be preserved if this investigation is genuine. He pushed the paper closer. Last chance. Ronke picked it up. For one terrible second, Halima thought she would sign. Ronke tore the page in half. The sound was soft. It cut through the room like a blade. I will not carry your lie, she said. Bode rose. Remove her ID card. The security supervisor approached. Ronke unclipped the card herself and placed it on the table. Give me written notice of the allegation. You will receive it. And the case must go through independent review. Bode laughed. You still think you have a voice here? Ronke looked at him. Yes, sir, even without an identity card. The security officers escorted her out. As she passed through the open plan office, conversations died one by one. People looked at their screens. Some turned their chairs away. Tola stood near the printer with tears in her eyes. Ronke wanted to tell her not to cry. No sound came. Outside the gate, the sun was brutal. Ronke walked to the roadside and sat on a low, concrete block beside the drainage channel. She held her handbag against her stomach and stared at nothing. Her phone showed 12 missed calls from an unknown Lagos number. She did not answer the 13th. A yellow tricycle stopped in front of her. The left lamp had been repaired. Seyi switched off the engine. Madam Ronke. She did not look up. He climbed down. What happened? They say I stole 6.8 million naira. The words sounded strange outside her mouth. Seyi crouched a short distance away, careful not to crowd her. Did you? Ronke lifted her head so sharply that anger flashed through her tears. No. I believe you. Why? Because you asked them to investigate. Maybe that was my cover. Was it? No. Then I believe you. Ronke wiped her face with the heel of her hand. They want me to say I bypassed the system. My access was removed at 8:23. Transactions started after 11. Did you record the time? Yes. Did you submit through the official portal? Yes. Case CV 2503-1 Senden. Good. She stared at him. Why are you asking like investigator? Seyi paused. Because facts are the only thing that can carry you out of this. Ronke looked toward the company gate. I need a witness who saw me leave the office after access was removed. Tola saw. Security saw. Basement staff saw. Then write the names and times while they are fresh. I have. Good. She laughed once, painfully. You keep saying good as if my life is not burning. Seyi lowered his eyes. You are right. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Ronke said, they mentioned you. I expected that. They say maybe you helped me. With what? Moving the money. Seyi looked at his old tricycle. I struggle to make the left indicator work. Their imagination respects me too much. Despite everything, a small sound escaped Ronke. Half laugh, half sob. Seyi let the silence settle. Then he asked, What will you do now? Tell the truth, only that. What else do I have? Seyi looked at her notebook. You have dates, times. A case number. A disabled account. A request for preservation. Those things are not small. Power can make small things disappear. Yes. The honesty surprised her. He continued. But power also leaves records when it moves. Do not invent anything. Do not exaggerate. Do not answer a lie with another lie. Ronke closed her notebook. I know. Suppose I tell investigators that I saw Bode collecting gate money. She looked at him carefully. Did you? No. Then you will not tell them. Even if it helps you, it will not help me. It will only give them one false statement to use against every true one. Seyi held her gaze. Something inside him settled. He had watched executives speak about ethics in rooms where everybody was comfortable. He had heard consultants praise integrity over expensive lunches. But here was a woman without a job, sitting beside dirty water, refusing the easiest lie available to save herself. Character looked different when it had no audience. I will take you home, he said. I do not have money, for I did not ask for money. I cannot accept pity. It is not pity. They mentioned me in the allegation. I want to know you reached home safely. Ronke hesitated. Then she entered the tricycle. As Seyi started the engine, two men at the gate watched them leave. One of them lifted a phone. By the time the tricycle turned onto the main road, Bode had already received the photograph. Ronke lived in a modest, self-contained apartment behind a pharmacy in Odo-Ona. The compound gate leaned slightly to one side, and the landlord had used old paint buckets as flower pots along the wall. When Seyi stopped outside, she remained seated for a moment. My mother will ask why I returned early, she said. Seyi looked at her through the mirror. Does she live with you? She stays with me when she comes for treatment. She has an appointment tomorrow. Will you tell her? Ronke pressed her lips together. Not today. You may need somebody with you. I need facts with me. She climbed down. Before closing the side rail, she said, Mr. Seyi, do not come near CedarVale, for now. They will use you to make the accusation look wider. Seyi almost smiled at the irony. She was trying to protect the man who owned the company from his own managers. I will be careful, he said. Ronke nodded and entered the compound. Seyi waited until the gate closed. Then he drove 3 streets away, parked beside a bakery, and entered the grey Toyota that had been following at a distance. The security officer took the tricycle back to Musa Alo's yard. Seyi sat in the rear seat and removed the faded reflective vest. Beneath it, sweat had darkened his navy polo shirt. His phone rang. Peter. We have the workstation, Peter said. HRIB04. Assigned to Halima Alo's office suite. Who logged into the administrator profile? The profile used is shared by 2 authorized HR technology officers and 1 regional HR director. Halima. Yes, but profile access alone does not prove she was at the keyboard. Camera? Requested. Local security says the corridor camera had a storage fault. Of course. Do not jump. The interior office camera may still have local memory. We also have door access. Halima entered the suite at 10:52 and did not badge out until 12:21. That places her there. It does not place her hands on the keyboard. What about the beneficiary accounts? 2 belong to recently registered micro-enterprises. 3 are personal accounts. We are tracing beneficial connections. Bode? Too early. Seyi looked out through the tinted window. I watched them escort her out. I know. She asked for the correct evidence before she knew we were preserving it. That helps her. It should never have reached this point. Peter was silent for a moment. No, he said. It should not. The following morning, CedarVale security officers placed a printed notice at the main gate. External. Operator noun, as say, is prohibited from picking up or dropping off passengers within 100 meters of company premise, pending. SICF review. Beneath the notice was a blurred photograph of Seyi beside the yellow tricycle. Drivers gathered around it. One laughed nervously. Oga Seyi, you have become celebrity. Musa did not laugh. He tore down the notice. Niyi rushed from the gatehouse. Oga Musa, please. They will say I allowed you. Musa held up the paper. This thing is not inside your gate. They pasted it on cooperative signpost. An instruction came from Madam Halima to ban a licensed driver from public road. Ni Alo's eyes moved toward the company building. I do not know law. I know salary. Musa Al's anger softened. Then keep your salary. But do not call wrong thing right, because your children eat from it. Ni flinched. Seyi took the notice from Musa and folded it. Leave him, he said. Musa turned. Leave him? They are using this man to carry their dirt. And if he refuses today, will you employ him tomorrow? Musa stopped. Seyi looked at Niyi. Did they ask you to collect my license? Yes. Do they have legal authority outside the premises? I do not know. Then do not touch the vehicle. I will stay beyond the marked distance. Ni nodded gratefully. Seyi moved his loading point 120 meters away. The punishment created the opposite result from what Bode intended. Workers began walking past the official pickup area to use Seyi Alo's tricycle. Some came because his fare was fair. Some came because they had seen the SUV incident. Most came because people dislike being told whom they are allowed to respect. By noon, 3 other cooperative drivers had joined him at the new point. The roadside became busier than the company gate. Bode saw it from his office window. His face tightened. Why are staff walking outside? He demanded. Halima stood beside him. They are patronizing the banned driver. Then issue warning. For using public transport? For creating congestion. Safety violation. Anything. Halima hesitated. Bode turned toward her. Hope no problem? No, sir. Then handle it. On Monday morning, Ronke received a courier letter from CedarVale. She had been placed on unpaid suspension, pending investigation into suspected financial misconduct, system access violation, and collusion with external parties. The letter had been copied to a private investigation firm. Her mother read the first paragraph before Ronke could stop her. What is this? The older woman asked. Ronke stood beside the small dining table, unable to answer. Did they sack you? No, Mummy. Did you take money? The question was quiet. It hurt more than Bode Alo's shouting. Ronke sank into a chair. No. Her mother sat opposite her. Look at me. Ronke raised her eyes. Did you take money? No, Mummy. They used my account after removing my access. Her mother Elo's shoulders lowered. Then why are you crying as if you have already agreed with them? Ronke covered her face. I am not crying. You are leaking water from your eyes. Call it whatever you like. The older woman reached across the table. We do not have rich relatives to make phone calls. We do not have big people in Abuja, so you must keep every paper, every message, every time. Poor people cannot afford careless memory. Ronke looked at her in surprise. Her mother squeezed her hand. And eat. A hungry brain will sign foolish paper. That afternoon, an investigator called Ronke and requested an interview at a neutral office. She agreed, asked for the allegation in writing, and took her notebook. She did not take Seyi. She did not want anybody to claim he had coached her. During the interview, Ronke answered only what she knew. Yes, she had noticed transport discrepancies. Yes, she had submitted case CV 22503-117. Yes, she had spoken with a tricycle driver about visible buses. No, she had not given him payroll records. No, she did not know the beneficiary accounts. No, she did not receive a password reset code. Yes, her access stopped at approximately 8:23 a.m. Yes, she had been in the basement archive area when the transactions occurred. The investigator asked, Would you say Mr. Williams was involved in fraud? Ronke shook her head. I do not know who was involved. I know the records require investigation. You had conflict with him. He asked me to withdraw the report. Could that have affected your judgment? My judgment is not the evidence. The logs are. Ronke met his eyes. She was afraid. She refused to perform fear for him. Meanwhile, Peter Allow's team followed the money. One beneficiary account belonged to a company called Ibadan Route Support Services. Its registered address was a one-room office above a phone accessory shop. The director was a 28-year-old man, named on paper, but unreachable at the listed address. Another beneficiary was Marble Crown Transit Limited. It had been incorporated 7 months earlier. Its website displayed photographs of 12 luxury buses. A reverse image search showed that the photographs belonged to transport companies in South Africa and Kenya. Marble Crown owned 3 buses. Only one had a current inspection certificate. Yet, Bode had recommended awarding it a 3-year transport contract worth 486 million naira. Peter traced the contact number used during Marble Crown Allow's registration. It matched a number listed in an older CedarVale conflict of interest declaration belonging to Bode Allow's brother-in-law. That was not enough to prove Bode controlled the company. Then the bank trail produced something stronger. A payment from one beneficiary account moved to a property maintenance company that serviced Bode Allow's private residence. Another paid the annual school fees of an adult relative studying for a postgraduate program in the United Kingdom. A third purchased vehicle parts for Bode Allow's SUV through a dealership account. The money had fingerprints now. At 6:10 on Tuesday evening, Peter met Seyi in a private room behind Musa Alozar's workshop. Printed charts covered a folding table. Musa stood at the door with his arms crossed. You are using my yard like anti-corruption office, he complained. Peter looked at him. You prefer we meet at CedarVale? Musa pulled a chair closer. Continue. Peter pointed to the first chart. 4.21 million cleared. We traced 3.4 million onward. Direct and indirect benefit links exist between the recipient network and Bode. Halima? Seyi asked. Her administrator credentials reset Ronke Allah's account. Access places her in the office. A local backup from an interior camera has been recovered. Musa leaned forward. Video? Yes. Peter turned his laptop. The footage had no sound. The timestamp showed 11:05 a.m. Halima entered the room alone, closed the door, and sat at workstation HRIBs 04. She remained there for 43 minutes. At 11:08, she used her mobile phone while typing. At 11:17, she looked toward the door, then continued. The first fraudulent approval had occurred at 11:18. Seyi Alo's jaw tightened. Can she claim she was doing other work? She can. But we also have browser, artifacts, reset, logs, and session tokens tied to that machine. Bode? His phone exchanged 9 calls with Halima during the transaction window. 2 calls with the contact used by Marble Crown. He also approved the beneficiary setup 3 weeks earlier. Musa let out a low whistle. Peter closed the laptop. Still, we need process. The board has scheduled an extraordinary governance review for Friday. Bode believes it is a routine people and safety forum, followed by the transport contract signing. He plans to sign Marble Crown? Yes, he has invited department heads, worker representatives, vendors and staff from other branches by video link. He wants public credit for cleaning up internal fraud, Alo, before the new investor representative arrives. Ronke? He has ordered her to attend as part of the investigation outcome presentation. Seyi Alo's eyes hardened. He wants to display her. Yes, and me. Peter slid a printed email across the table. Seyi read it. External tricycle operator involved in repeated safety and conduct breaches should attend for identification and final exclusion notice. Musa struck the table. They want to drag you there and insult you in front of everybody. Peter looked at Seyi. That appears to be the plan. Seyi folded the email. Good. Musa stared at him. Good. The room will be full. Peter raised one finger. You will not improvise. The board chair opens the governance review. Evidence is presented in order. Legal counsel states the preservation actions. You do not announce criminal guilt. You do not order arrest. You do not promise prison. Seyi looked at him. Have I ever done those things? No. But you have never watched somebody frame an employee in front of you. The room became quiet. Peter continued. The strongest response is not rage. It is a record that survives rage. Seyi nodded once. Understood. The next morning, Ronke visited CedarVale, only because Tola had sent a message marked urgent. Meet me at the food kiosk opposite the west fence, please. Tola arrived carrying a brown envelope. She sat across from Ronke on a wooden bench. My night shift allowance has not entered for 3 months, she said. It is 47,600 naira. Ronke blinked. Why are you telling me now? Because they said my form was missing. I found the submission acknowledgement. She pushed the envelope across. Ronke did not open it. I no longer work on payroll. I know. They may call this collusion. Tola Alo's eyes filled. Then what should I do? Everybody inside is afraid to touch anything connected to you. Ronke looked toward the CedarVale fence. She had no job, no access, no authority, but she still knew the procedure. Keep the original, she said. Make 2 copies. Send one through the payroll dispute email and one through the whistleblowing portal. Write the dates of all previous submissions. Do not accuse anybody of stealing the allowance. Ask for reconciliation and acknowledgement. Tola nodded quickly and requests that any action against you be communicated in writing. Will they pay me? I do not know. Then why do all this? Because a complaint without a record can be denied. A record can be ignored, but it cannot honestly be called invisible. Tola held the envelope close. You are still helping people after what they did to you. Ronke looked down. I know how it feels when everybody turns their chair away. Across the road, Seyi had stopped to pick up a passenger. He saw the 2 women at the kiosk. He did not interrupt. Later, when Tola left, he parked nearby. Ronke approached him. You should not be here. I am 120 meters from the gate. You counted? Musa counted. He enjoys arguments. She almost smiled. Seyi noticed the tiredness beneath her eyes. "Did the investigator contact you?" he asked. "Yes. How did it go?" I answered. "That is all? That is all I should do." Seyi leaned against the tricycle. "Suppose the company clears your name. What then?" "First, let them clear it." "I am asking because people sometimes focus so much on surviving injustice that they do not think about what justice should repair." Ronke considered the question. "My name," she said. "Not only my job. They sent the accusation to department heads. If they quietly return my access, the lie will still be outside." "What else?" "Money removed from workers. Transport that actually works. A complaint channel management cannot open and read whenever they like." Seyi frowned. "You think they accessed your confidential report?" Bode had a printed copy. "That should not be possible. But it happened." "What else?" Ronke looked at the workers walking beneath the sun because the staff bus had not arrived. Managers should spend one full shift with the people affected by their decisions. Not on inspection day. Not with camera. Ordinary day. Seyi said nothing. She continued, "A company does not become good because the owner catches one bad manager. What happens after the owner goes?" He looked at her. Ronke had no idea why that question struck him so deeply. She thought he was a driver listening politely because he had nowhere urgent to be. "If you were the owner," Seyi asked, "what would you change first?" "I would stop pretending one powerful person can see everything." He lifted an eyebrow. She pointed toward CedarVale. "Look at that place. Everybody there knows which bus is broken. Everybody knows drivers pay at the gate. Everybody knows complaints can cost you contract renewal. But information moves upward through people who benefit from blocking it. So? So, let workers report outside the branch. Publish service numbers. Reconcile deductions openly. Protect the person who raises the issue. And punish retaliation as seriously as the original offense." Seyi Alo's voice softened. "You have thought about this. I have had free time." The bitterness returned. She stepped away. Before leaving, she said, "Mr. Seyi, people like us do not need a secret rich man appearing each time somebody suffers. We need rules that still work when no rich man is watching." The sentence stayed with him long after she had gone. That night, Seyi called Peter. "Add anti-retaliation design to the board response." Already there. Not as training, as governance. Third-party reporting. Audit committee access. Mandatory disclosure of unresolved complaints. Manager performance tied to worker safety and payment accuracy. Peter was quiet. "Where did this come from?" "Ronke, she knows?" "No. Good." Seyi looked down at the reflective vest folded over a chair. "Peter." "Yes?" "When this is over, do not let anybody call what I did a brilliant leadership test." "What should they call it?" "A failure that required disguise before the truth became visible." On Thursday afternoon, a courier delivered 2 cards. Ronke Alo's card read "Guest under investigation." Seyi Alo's read "External Tricycle Operator." The CedarVale People and Safety Forum would begin Friday at 9 a.m. Attendance was mandatory at 7:30 that evening. Bode stood alone in the company auditorium while technicians tested the projector. His opening slide filled the screen. Discipline, integrity, and the future of CedarVale. He practiced the line he planned to use before announcing Ronke Alo's dismissal. "Corruption does not always enter through the executive gate. Sometimes it hides behind the face of a struggling employee who believes poverty is an excuse for theft." He liked the sound of it. Halima stood in the aisle, checking the seating plan. "Where will the new owner Alo's representative sit?" Bode asked. "Front row, 2 seats reserved. Do we have a name?" "Peter Daniels is confirmed. The chairman of Adebayo Industrial Partners may join by video." Bode adjusted his cuff. "Better. Let them see that I removed fraud before they even completed transition. Halima looked toward the giant screen. What about the account logs? Our internal summary states Ronke's credentials were used. That is not what I asked. Bode turned slowly. You are becoming nervous. The bank froze some payments too quickly. Routine control. The whistleblowing portal record was preserved outside the branch. Bode Williams' jaw tightened. How do you know? I tried to close the case. The system would not allow it. For the first time, uncertainty passed between them. Then Bode straightened his tie. Tomorrow we control the room, he said. Once the board sees her as the thief, every complaint becomes revenge. People believe the first clean story they hear. Halima nodded. But when she looked at the empty front row seats, her confidence did not return. At Musa Alos's yard, Seyi placed the guest cards beside a cobalt blue suit, sealed inside a garment bag. Musa stared at both. You will enter wearing driver clothes? Yes. And change later, if required. Why not arrive with convoy and finish them from gate? Because then they will behave for the convoy. Musa shook his head. Rich people like drama. Seyi smiled faintly. Poor people also watch drama. That one is true. Musa lifted the reflective vest and examined a tear near the shoulder. Wear this same one, he said. Let them recognize the cloth they insulted. Seyi took it from him. The next morning would not be about a rich man, proving he had more power than a cruel manager. It would be about proving that the cruel manager had abused power when he believed the person before him had none. There was a difference, and by sunrise, Bode Williams would learn it. Friday, March 28, 2025, arrived with heavy clouds over Ibadan. By 8:17 a.m., 63 CedarVale employees were already gathered near the executive gate. Department heads had been instructed to welcome board representatives. Security officers had polished their boots. The reception team had placed bottled water and branded folders on a white table beneath the canopy. The gate had been painted. Fresh green paint still shone around the hinges. Seyi saw it from the road and remembered the handwritten note in the brown envelope. They always paint the gate. He was wearing the same faded, reflective vest. His navy polo shirt was clean. The yellow tricycle had been washed, but one small dent remained beside the repaired lamp. Musa had insisted they leave it. Evidence should not become too beautiful, he had said. A CedarVale warehouse worker named Grace stood at Seyi Alaso's loading point with one leg wrapped at the ankle. She had twisted it while coming down from a staff bus that morning. The official vehicle had stopped far from the pedestrian entrance because management wanted the driveway clear for executive cars. Driver, please take me closer, she said. I cannot walk from here. Seyi looked toward the notice banning him within 100 meters. Do you have staff clinic paper? Grace showed him a small slip from the first aid attendant. He nodded. Ah, enter. The tricycle moved slowly toward the gate. Seyi saw him and stepped out. Oga, Seyi, today of all days. She cannot walk, I understand, but Bode is here. Then open the pedestrian side and let her down. Seyi looked at Grace Allow's swollen ankle. His face tightened. He opened the side barrier. Seyi drove 5 meters inside the outer gate, no farther. That was when Bode Williams' SUV arrived. The black vehicle stopped behind the tricycle. The horn sounded once. Long, angry. Bode stepped out before his driver could open the door. He wore the emerald suit, ruby tie, silver watch. Every part of him looked prepared for a photograph. What is this thing doing here? He shouted. Grace was trying to climb down, Seyi turned. She injured her ankle, sir. Did I ask you? No, sir. Then move this roadside coffin away from my executive gate. Workers turned. The reception team stopped arranging folders. Halima came down from the front steps in her ruby red dress. Security. I gave a written instruction, she said. Why is this driver inside? Seyi stepped forward. Ma, the staff has injury. Are you now a doctor? No, Ma. Then do your job. Grace finally reached the ground. Seyi took his food flask from the front compartment so he could lift her bag. Bode saw it. Perhaps he remembered the argument over the SUV. Perhaps he saw the workers watching and wanted to remind them who controlled the gate. He walked forward and kicked the flask from Seyi Alo's hand. It struck the muddy edge of the driveway and opened. Rice, stew, and boiled egg spilled into brown water. A collective breath moved through the crowd. Move this smelling cake away from my executive gate, Bode roared. Men like you should remain beside the gutter. Even if you drive this tricycle until your bones become dust, you cannot afford one tire of my SUV. Somebody laughed. Then 2 more people joined. It was the nervous laughter of employees who did not know whether silence would be counted as disloyalty. Halima folded her arms. Poor people are becoming too bold, she said. Look at him standing as if he owns the company. Ronke had just arrived, carrying her guest under investigation card. She saw the food in the mud. She saw Grace leaning against the gatepost. She saw Seyi standing with empty hands. Something inside her snapped. Sir, he only brought an injured worker closer to the gate. Bode turned. His expression changed when he saw her. You, Ronke held out her invitation. You asked me to attend. Bode snatched the temporary card from her hand. So you want to lose the small chance you have left because of an ordinary tricycle driver? Ronke stared at him. My chance to do what? Accept your lie? The crowd went silent. Halima took 1 step forward. Mind how you speak. Seyi slowly raised his eyes. His lunch was sinking into dirty water, but his voice remained dangerously calm. Do you treat everybody this way when the owner is not watching? Bode laughed. The sound rolled over the workers. The owner of this company will never stand beside a man like you. Seyi looked at the glass building behind him. Then he looked back at Bode. All right, he said. Only that all right. The words unsettled Bode more than protest would have done. He pointed toward the auditorium. Bring both of them inside. Since they like public performance, we will finish this matter publicly. Seyi picked up Seyi Alo's food flask from the mud. I am sorry, he whispered. Seyi accepted it. Write what you saw, he said softly. Seyi Alo's eyes widened. Then he nodded. At 8:58, the CedarVale auditorium was almost full. 486 employees sat in rows of green chairs. Large screens displayed live feeds from Osogbo and Ilorin branches. Representatives from suppliers occupied the left side. Department heads sat near the front. Ronke was placed in the first row, directly beneath the stage. Seyi was told to stand at the back beside 2 security officers. His tricycle vest glowed dull yellow beneath the white lights. People whispered. That is the driver. They say he helped her steal. No, they say he caused problem at gate. Why will a Keek driver attend company forum? Maybe police are coming. At exactly 9:06, Bode walked onto the stage. Applause rose because the department heads began clapping first. Halima sat behind him beside the finance controller and the legal officer. 2 empty chairs remained at the center of the platform. Bode stood at the lectern. Good morning, CedarVale family. Good morning, sir, the crowd answered. Today is a day of truth. Seyi watched from the back. Bode Alo's first slide appeared. Discipline, integrity, and the future of CedarVale. For 22 minutes, he spoke about ethics. He spoke about loyalty. He spoke about protecting company resources from selfish individuals. He described management as the shield standing between honest workers and internal thieves. Each sentence was polished. Each sentence was poison. Then the slide changed. A photograph of Ronke's employee profile appeared on the giant screen. The room shifted. Ronke's spine became rigid. Bode lowered his voice. "Corruption does not always enter through the executive gate," he said. "Sometimes it hides behind the face of a struggling employee who believes poverty is an excuse for theft." A murmur spread through the hall. Tola covered her mouth. Ronke rose from her seat. "I have not been found guilty of anything." Bode pointed at her. "Sit down. You circulated this accusation before completing an independent review." "I said sit down." The microphone made his voice crack through the speakers. Ronke remained standing. Halima leaned toward another microphone. "Security, please ensure order." Seyi took one step forward. The officers beside him blocked his path. He did not resist. Bode clicked to the next slide. A transaction table appeared. On March 20th, credentials belonging to this employee. Approved attempted payments of 6,870,400 naira. We also established that she maintained suspicious contact with an external tricycle operator already involved in safety violations and attempted compensation fraud. The screen changed again. A photograph showed Seyi driving Ronke away from CedarVale. The image had been taken after her suspension. Bode looked toward the back. "Bring him forward." The security officers gestured. Seyi walked down the center aisle. Whispers followed him from row to row. His old vest, his repaired shoes, his calm face. Bode watched him approach with open disgust. "State your full name," Bode said. "Seyi Adebayo." The surname caused no visible reaction. Adebayo was common enough. Occupation? Transport operator. The answer was true. Bode smiled. "Do you own the yellow tricycle outside?" "No. It belongs to a licensed cooperative member and is rented under agreement. So, even the keek is not your own." Laughter broke through the room. This time fewer people joined. Bode lifted one hand. "Have you ever seen 6 million naira?" Seyi looked at him. "Yes." The laughter weakened. Bode leaned forward. "In your dream?" "No, sir. Did Ronke Coker give you company information?" "She told me the books showed 19 buses." Gasps moved through the hall. Ronke spoke from the front row. "That is not confidential. The number appears in staff transport notices." Halima cut in. "You are not permitted to speak." Seyi kept his eyes on Bode. She asked how many buses I had seen moving. He continued. "I said 8. "And you began investigating my company?" Bode asked. Seyi's expression became almost curious. "Your company?" Bode spread his hands toward the stage. "I run regional operations. I have authority here." "That is not what I asked." Bode's face hardened. Seyi continued. "You called it your company." The hall became quiet. Halima sensed danger before Bode did. She leaned toward him and whispered something. He waved her away. "When people with shares finish speaking," he said into the microphone, "people with nothing will be allowed to ask questions." At that exact moment, the side door opened. Peter Daniels entered with 2 members of CedarVale LO's board, the company secretary, and external legal counsel. Nobody played music. No bodyguards marched in. The authority entered through documents. Bode Williams' face brightened. "Mr. Daniels," he said. "Welcome. We are just concluding our integrity presentation before the transport contract signing." Peter did not smile. "Mr. Williams, the signing will not proceed." A small silence fell. Bode blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "The audit committee has converted this session into an extraordinary governance review, pursuant to the acquisition agreement and board resolution dated March 26th. The company secretary placed a sealed folder on the table. Halima's hands tightened around her pen. Bode stepped away from the lectern. "There must be some misunderstanding. We have already handled the employee fraud." "No," Peter said. "You have presented an allegation as a conclusion." Ronke sat very still. Peter looked toward Seyi. Mr. Adebayo, the board is ready for you. Nobody moved. The words floated above the hall as though the microphones had failed to translate them. Bode looked at the empty center chairs. Then he looked at Peter. Then at Seyi. What? Peter repeated it. Mr. Seyi Adebayo, founder and controlling beneficial owner of Adebayo Industrial Partners, the entity holding 68.4% of CedarVale Conceal Distribution Limited. A phone slipped from somebody Alo's hand and struck the floor. One sharp sound. Then nothing. Seyi reached the stage. The board members stood. So did the company secretary. Across the live screens, branch executives began rising from their chairs. Bode did not move. His mouth opened, but no voice came. Halima Alo's face lost color beneath her makeup. Ronke stared at Seyi, the reflective vest, the yellow tricycle, the repaired lamp. The man who had waited beside the drainage channel while she tried not to break. All of it remained true, but it was not all of him. Peter handed Seyi the board resolution. Seyi signed the attendance register, then removed the temporary card from his vest. External tricycle operator. He placed it on the lectern. Bode finally found his voice. Sir. It came out as a whisper. Seyi looked at him. Bode took one step forward. His knees seemed to weaken. Sir, I did not know. That is the problem, Seyi said. Bode stopped. Seyi Alo's voice was not loud. Every person heard it. You did not know who could punish you. Bode Alo's lips trembled. There has been misunderstanding. The gate incident. Pressure, sir. We were expecting important visitors. Security standards. You kicked food from my hand. Bode swallowed. I reacted badly. You humiliated an injured worker for delaying your car. I did not see her injury. You threatened Ronke for asking for a receipt. She was insubordinate. You ordered a stationary tricycle driver to pay for an accident caused by your vehicle. The angle was unclear. Seyi recorded the time. The camera preserved the angle. Bodelo's eyes moved toward the security section. Seyi stood. His hands shook, but he remained standing. The SUV reversed, sir, he said. The tricycle was behind the line. Bode stared at him. Seyi looked back for the first time. Seyi turned to Bode. Do not kneel. Bode had begun lowering himself without realizing it. The instructions stopped him halfway. Stand up. Seyi said. You forced too many people to feel small. I will not prove that I am better by doing the same thing to you. Bode straightened slowly. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then Peter opened the first evidence file. The hope died. This review concerns more than conduct at the gate, Peter said. It concerns suspected procurement fraud, payroll manipulation, unauthorized access, retaliation against a whistleblower, and false attribution of financial transactions. The giant screen went black. Then a new slide appeared. CedarVale Transport and Payroll Forensic Review. Peter began with the fleet. 19 buses reported. 12 historically acquired. 3 sold as scrap. 1 written off after fire damage. 2 transferred. Only 8 observed in current operating records, several with serious maintenance concerns. Photographs appeared beside chassis numbers and gate logs. Musa Asa's signed maintenance records were displayed next to invoices claiming service on vehicles that had never existed. Bus CV14, no acquisition record, no chassis registration, yet 21 fuel purchases in 4 months. Bus CV17, no roadworthiness certificate, no insurance file, yet tire replacement billed twice. Bus CV12. Engine removed. 183 liters of diesel purchased on a Sunday. The hall began to murmur. Workers pointed at the screen. Drivers shook their heads. Department managers stared down at their folders. Peter moved to staff deductions. 912 employees charged 2,350 naira in February. Service failures documented on 11 routes. Late penalties applied on days when company buses did not arrive. Night shift workers left without promised transport. Tola began crying silently. The next slide showed unpaid allowances, including her 47,600 naira. She pressed both hands over her face. Seyi looked across the room. "This is not an accounting inconvenience," he said. "These are people Aloes transport home, their food money, their safety after night shift." Peter continued. "The fraudulent refunds. Ronke Ilo's account disabled at 8:22 a.m. Password reset from HRIB04 at 11:07. First login at 11:09. First fraudulent approval at 11:18. Attempted total 6,870,400 naira. The screen showed an access timeline. Ronke stood slowly. Her own name appeared in red beside the transactions. Then Peter changed the slide. A video still showed Halima seated at workstation HRIB04. Timestamp 11:18:26. The exact minute of the first approval. Every head turned toward Halima. She gripped the table. "That does not prove what I was doing." "Ah," she said. "No single item is being presented alone," Peter replied. "The session token, browser cache, administrator override, door access, and identity reset, log all align with that workstation and time." Halima looked at Bode. He did not look back. Peter displayed the call records. 9 calls between Halima and Bode during the transaction window. 2 calls between Bode and the Marble Crown registration contact. Then came the bank trail. Money moving from beneficiary accounts to expenses connected to Bode Ilo's household, vehicle, and relatives. Bode stepped toward the microphone. "This is selective interpretation. I approve hundreds of vendors. I cannot know every connection." The company secretary opened another file. Marble Crown Transit Alo's registration contact matches the person you declared as your brother-in-law in your 2022 conflict of interest form. Bode Alo's face changed. The document appeared on screen. His signature sat at the bottom. He looked toward the legal officer. The legal officer looked away. Peter continued. Marble Crown claimed 12 buses. It owned 3. Only one had a current inspection certificate. Its website used stolen photographs from foreign transport companies. Yet Bode had recommended a 486 million naira contract, without disclosing the family connection. The hall erupted. Workers began speaking at once. 400 million? They were deducting from us. God forbid! Seyi lifted one hand. The noise slowly fell. Ronke remained standing in the front row. Peter faced her. The independent review has found no evidence that you initiated, controlled, or benefited from the disputed transactions. The available evidence shows your credentials were used after your access had been removed. Your whistleblowing submission preceded the transactions and specifically requested preservation of the same logs that later cleared you. Ronke Alo's lips parted. No words came. Peter continued. The internal notice presenting you as a thief was premature, unsupported, and retaliatory. The company secretary stood. On behalf of CedarVale Aloes Board, that notice is withdrawn with immediate effect. A written correction will be sent to every recipient of the original allegation. Tola rose first. She began clapping. 1 person joined. Then 5. Then an entire section. Ronke shook her head, tears sliding down her face. The applause grew until it filled the hall, crossed the screens, and returned from Osogbo and Ilorin like distant thunder. Seyi did not clap. He watched her. Applause could not give back the nights she had spent wondering whether her own mother believed her. It could not erase the photograph circulated with her name. It was only a beginning. Bode stepped toward Seyi. "Sir, Halima controlled HR access. I relied on summaries. If there was manipulation, I was misled. Halima turned on him. You instructed me. The microphone near her was still live. Her voice blasted through the auditorium. A wave of shock moved through the room. Bode spun around. Be careful. You said, once the board saw Ronke as the thief, every complaint would look like revenge. The words hung in the air. Halima realized what she had done. She covered her mouth. Peter looked at the external legal counsel, who made a note. Bode face twisted. She is lying to save herself. Halima stood. You approved the accounts. You told me to reset. Enough, Seyi said. Both stopped. This is not a market quarrel where the loudest person becomes innocent. You will each have an opportunity to respond through the investigation process. He turned to the board members. The audit committee chair read the resolutions. Bode Williams and Halima George were suspended with immediate effect. All system and premises access was revoked. The marble crown signing was cancelled. Payments to connected vendors were frozen. Records were placed under legal preservation. The matter would be referred to appropriate investigative authorities and independent counsel. Employees who provided evidence were protected from retaliation. No manager was permitted to delete, transfer, or remove company records. Security officers approached the stage. Bode looked at Seyi with wet eyes. Sir, after all my years here? Seyi's expression did not change. Your years here are exactly why the harm is serious. You had time to know better. I increased profit. At whose expense? I delivered results. You delivered numbers. Results include how people were treated while creating them. Bode shook his head. This is because of what happened at the gate. No, Seyi said. What happened at the gate showed me your character. The records show your conduct. He stepped closer. When you thought I had nothing, that was when you showed everybody who you were. My suit did not create my dignity. My shares did not create it. They only changed your behavior. Bode looked around the hall. Nobody laughed now. The same workers who had laughed nervously at the gate stared back in silence. Seyi turned toward the audience. What happened here is also a failure of ownership, he said. Peter looked at him. The board members became still. Seyi continued. We trusted polished reports. We accepted fleet availability charts without asking drivers whether the buses moved. We saw profit and failed to ask whether staff deductions matched actual service. We created a complaint system that local management could compromise. If I had to wear a reflective vest before this company showed me the truth, that is not a clever leadership success. It is evidence that our governance failed. No applause came. This time the silence was right. A company is not ethical because the owner can arrive and punish a bad manager. Seyi said. It is ethical when the cleaner, contract accountant, security guard, warehouse worker, and driver can tell the truth without first identifying somebody powerful enough to protect them. He looked at Ronke. She told me something this week. People do not need a secret rich man to appear every time injustice happens. They need rules that still work when no rich man is watching. Ronke stared at him. Now she understood why he had asked what she would change. Seyi faced the board. Those rules begin today. At 11:47 a.m., Bode and Halima left the auditorium through the side entrance. They were not handcuffed. Nobody beat them. Nobody threw food at them. They carried suspension letters and the knowledge that the records they had tried to control no longer belonged to them. That was enough. Outside, rain had begun to fall. Bode's black SUV remained beneath the executive canopy. But he was not permitted to enter it until company security had documented and released personal property according to procedure. For 12 minutes, he stood beside the same gate where he had told Seyi to remain near the gutter. Workers passed without lowering their eyes. Inside the auditorium, Ronke stood alone near the first row. The crowd had begun dispersing. Seyi approached her slowly. She looked at the faded vest, then at his face. "You lied to me," she said. He accepted the accusation. "I withheld who I was." That is a rich man Alo's way of saying lied. "Yes." Ronke folded her arms. "You sat there asking what I would do if I owned the company." "Yes." "You drove me home while security followed you." "Yes." "You allowed me to advise you not to come near your own gate." "Yes." For the first time that morning, a small smile threatened the corner of her mouth. She pushed it away. "I am still angry." "You should be. Why did you not stop them earlier?" The question carried no humor. Seyi took a breath. Because stopping the humiliation was easier than proving the fraud. Peter believed that if I revealed myself too early, they would hide the evidence and call everything a misunderstanding. And you agreed. I did. Would you agree again? He looked toward the stage where her photograph had been displayed. I do not know. Ronke studied him. It was the first answer that felt fully honest. Seyi continued. I can explain the decision. I cannot ask you to say it caused no harm. She looked down. My mother asked if I stole. Seyi Alo's face tightened. That should never have happened. No, it will be corrected publicly, not only internally. Good. And you will receive full pay during the period of suspension. That is not compensation. It is money already owed. Yes. Again, he did not argue. Ronke finally looked at him. Then maybe the company can learn. Outside, the rain grew heavier, striking the fresh paint on the gate until small green lines ran down the concrete. The gate had been made beautiful for power. By afternoon, the rain had exposed every careless stroke. 3 months later, the final independent report reached 187 pages. It did not describe villains with horns or heroes without mistakes. It described controls that had failed, warnings that had been ignored, and people who had learned to survive by keeping quiet. The evidence confirmed that Bode had undisclosed financial connections to the vendor network. Halima had used administrative access to reset Ronke Alo's account and authorize fraudulent payments. Several lower-level employees had followed irregular instructions because they feared losing their jobs. But investigators found no evidence that they received money. The consequences were separated carefully. Bode and Halima were dismissed for gross misconduct after disciplinary hearings. Their files, along with the financial evidence, were transferred to the appropriate authorities. Connected vendor accounts remained frozen, while recovery proceedings continued. The workers beneath them were not punished as one frightened crowd. Those who had hidden records, lied during interviews, or collected unauthorized cash faced proportionate discipline. Those who came forward early received protection. Those who had simply obeyed ordinary instructions without knowledge of the fraud were retrained. Justice was not a hammer thrown into a room. It was a scale. CedarVale calculated every unsupported transport deduction made during the previous 14 months. The company published the method, staff number ranges, affected routes, and payment timetable so workers could check the figures themselves. 912 employees received refunds for February alone. Night shift allowances were reconciled. Late arrival warnings linked to failed staff buses were removed from personnel files. Tola received 47,600 naira in unpaid allowances, plus the additional amounts found during review. She read the credit alert 3 times. Then she walked to Ronke Alo's desk and placed a bottle of malt beside her keyboard. "This one is not bribe," she said. "It is Thanksgiving." Ronke laughed. Her return to CedarVale had not happened quietly. The board sent a written correction to every person who had received the original accusation. The company held another staff forum where the chair stated plainly that Ronke had been falsely implicated after reporting legitimate concerns. Her name was not hidden inside legal language. It was restored in the same space where it had been damaged. Seyi offered her a role in internal controls. Ronke did not accept immediately. "What are the reporting lines?" she asked. "Operationally, finance control," Seyi said. "For whistleblowing and retaliation matters, direct access to the audit committee. Permanent contract? Yes. Professional exam support? Yes. Written protection against removal for raising a good faith concern. Written and board approved." Ronke looked through the offer for another 10 minutes. Then she signed. She did not become chief executive overnight. Nobody placed a luxury car key in her hand. There was no sudden mansion, no romance, no magical leap from struggle to wealth. She became senior internal controls officer because the work matched her ability. Her professional accounting fees were paid under a transparent staff development policy that applied to others too. That mattered to her. A reward that only existed because the owner liked one employee was still another form of favoritism. Musa received a different offer. CedarVale asked him to become transport safety advisor to the new worker management committee. He accepted only after the company agreed that drivers and mechanics would hold voting seats, not merely attend meetings for decoration. "Do not carry me there to clap for grammar," he warned Seyi. "If break is bad, I will write bad break." "That is why you are there," Seyi replied. The transport system was rebuilt in stages. Long routes used inspected buses with published schedules. Licensed tricycle cooperatives handled approved first-mile and last-mile connections. Fares were displayed openly. Drivers received numbered electronic receipts. Cash collection at the gate ended. Every participating vehicle underwent monthly safety checks. Every driver carried accident insurance. Night shift workers had a guaranteed ride home or a documented reimbursement process. The company also created a simple public dashboard showing how many buses were active, how many routes were delayed, and how many transport complaints remained unresolved. No more invisible vehicles. No more spiritual buses buying diesel without engines. The complaint system moved outside branch control. A third party received reports. The audit committee saw retaliation flags directly. Managers could no longer close a case involving themselves. Leadership assessments changed too. Profit remained important. So did delivery time and inventory loss. But management bonuses now included payroll accuracy, safety performance, unresolved complaints, and anonymous feedback from frontline workers and contractors. Some executives complained that the measures were too strict. Seyi answered them during a board meeting. If respect disappears when it affects bonus, then it was never a value. It was decoration. Seyi kept his job. The investigation showed that he had collected unauthorized gate fees under instruction, but he had also preserved the incident time, provided evidence, and cooperated fully once protection was available. He received a formal warning, returned the portion of cash still in his custody, and completed compliance training. 6 weeks later, he was elected by the security team to represent them on the worker committee. At the first meeting, he stood before Musa with discomfort written across his face. "Oga Musa, that day you asked whether I would call wrong thing right because my children eat from it." Musa nodded. "I was angry. You were correct." Musa looked at him for a moment, then pulled out a chair. "Sit down." Correctness should repair person, not only wound him. Seyi sat. That was how CedarVale changed. Not through one dramatic morning alone. through meetings that were less exciting. Refund calculations, maintenance checks, revised contracts. Complaints answered before they became scandals. Managers learning that a respectful voice was not weakness. Workers learning that proper documentation could turn fear into evidence. 6 months after the forum, CedarVale launched its rebuilt transport network. The ceremony was held at the Oluyole Gate at 7:30 in the morning, before the first warehouse shift. There was no red carpet. Ronke had rejected it. "People are coming to work," she said. "Let them walk on the road normally." The new buses stood in a line, each carrying a visible route number. Cooperative tricycles waited beside a covered passenger area. A digital board displayed departure times and contact details for complaints. Seyi arrived in the old yellow tricycle. He drove it himself. The repaired lamp still worked. The small dent remained. Musa sat beside him, wearing clean overalls and a cap bearing the cooperative ELO's name. Workers turned as the engine approached. Some smiled. Some raised phones. Others simply watched. Seyi wore a white shirt with the sleeves folded. No cobalt suit, no convoy. At the gate, a newly assigned officer stepped forward. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning." The officer reached for the barrier. Seyi pointed toward Musa. "Check the permit." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we know you. That is not the rule." Musa grinned. The officer took the cooperative permit, scanned the number, checked the vehicle sticker and opened the gate. San. "Clear to enter." Seyi nodded. "Thank you." As the tricycle moved forward, he said loudly enough for the people nearby to hear, "Open the gate because the permit is correct. Not because I am sitting here." Ronke stood beside the published fare board in a pale aqua jacket and burnt orange blouse. She watched the tricycle stop near the staff pickup area. Seyi climbed down. "You checked the refund complaints?" he asked. 7 remain unresolved. Out of how many? 311 follow-up claims. That is progress. It is unfinished work. He smiled. You never allow good news to rest. Good news becomes lazy when people carry it on their head. Musa laughed from the tricycle. Workers began boarding the buses. Drivers checked manifests. Security officers issued electronic receipts to cooperative vehicles. A warehouse employee pointed to the departure board and saw exactly when her route would leave. The system worked. Not perfectly, but visibly. Seyi looked toward the place where his food had fallen into the mud 6 months earlier. The concrete had been cleaned. The gate had been repainted properly. No mark remained. Ronke followed his eyes. "Do you still think about that morning?" She yes. Because of the insult. Because of the laughter. She understood. Bode Williams' cruelty had been loud, but the laughter had revealed the deeper sickness. People had joined because they were afraid. Others because they wanted approval. A few because they had learned to measure human beings by clothing and vehicles. Seyi looked at the workers entering the gate. "A company can replace a manager," he said. "Changing what people have learned to tolerate takes longer." Ronke nodded. "That is why rules matter, and examples, and consequences, and second chances where they are deserved." Musa called from behind them. "You people should finish board meeting. Passengers are waiting." Ronke laughed. Seyi stepped aside. The first bus pulled out at exactly 7:47 a.m. on time. No crowd applauded because a billionaire had appeared. They applauded when the route board changed from scheduled to departed. For the first time in many months, the promise and the service matched. That was the real victory. What stayed with me was never the fact that Seyi turned out to be a billionaire. Wealth only made the reveal dramatic. The deeper truth was how quickly ordinary respect appeared. After people discovered that the man in the reflective vest could affect their careers. Poverty was not the disgrace in this story. The disgrace was a system that trained people to measure human worth by a job title, a suit, or the vehicle parked outside. It was the belief that a person deserved courtesy only when he could reward you, and deserved restraint only when he could punish you. The names and organizations presented here are not intended to identify any particular real person, company, or establishment. The lesson is about workplace dignity, ethical leadership, careful documentation, and the character we display when we believe nobody powerful is watching. Because the truest audit of a human being is not how they treat the owner at the executive gate. It is how they treat the driver standing beside the gutter.